Hello everyone, Neil Patel here. Thank you for downloading the latest episode of the Indian Startup Show. Today I speak to Anand Chowdhary, the founder of Oswald Labs. It's a Netherlands and Indian-based accessibility technology company. They build products for people with disabilities, and he also runs an in-house tech accelerator. So in this podcast we talk about how he got started, dropping out of design college, moving from India to the Netherlands, and how he manages his life as a student, entrepreneur and consultant to startups around the world. He gives great advice on solving real-world problems, talks about being on the Forbes 30 under 30 list, and also being named as one of the 50 most innovative entrepreneurs and professionals in the Netherlands. Also talks about winning hackathons, having supportive parents, and finding some chat about politics and education in India. It's a great episode, so please enjoy the show. Thank you. Hello, Anand. Thank you for coming on the Indian Startup Show today.
Hi, Neil. Excited to be here.
Excellent. Please tell listeners what you're building.
So I run Oswald Labs, which is an accessibility technology company, which means that we build products for people with disabilities. So we do all sorts of stuff, consumer, enterprise, and we also have an in-house accelerator to help other startups building, solving real problems.
Excellent. And where did you come up with the idea to do an accessibility technology company?
So it's actually super interesting. I had the idea of building a browser plugin for people with dyslexia because I realized that a lot of websites are not intrinsically accessible to them. And I had it in the shower. And and I was planning on participating in a weekend hackathon, which is, you keep just coding for 24 hours and then you have kind of a product at the end of it. So I asked my friend Nishant, who I knew from high school, and I said, hey, I had this idea, I want to build this product. And incidentally, just that weekend, we have a hackathon. Do you want to go? And he said, yeah, let's do it. So we were there, and that was Angel Hack in Delhi. And we won the Code for Impact Challenge, which is where we built the first Oswald for Chrome extension, which helps people with dyslexia really customize the web so they can go into the settings and say, okay, these are the color contrast ratios are like, this is the font size, this is the line height. They can really customize everything. And then when they save that, whatever the website they go to, Facebook, Twitter, Medium, Quora, it would all automatically be redesigned to their format. So we built that during that hackathon, and that was it. That was just one hackathon. We built it. We put it up on the store for free. And that was the end of it. But in just the next few weeks, it kind of became kind of famous. We were in Hindustan Times. We were in the Huffington Post, and people got really excited about it. And that was also when I actually moved to Ahmedabad in India to study design. And during design school, all of this is happening. So I realized that, there's a lot of potential for this. And why stop at just this one really tiny part of the problem we want to solve? Let's take this further. So I decided to drop out of college. I moved back to New Delhi, and I started doing this full time. And that's how we started.
Excellent. So why did you win that hackathon then? What was the feedback? There must have been a lot of other companies there as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, people do a lot of great stuff, especially at hackathons. But the thing about hackathons is that you really have to build something really quickly. The products aren't that finished. And the category that we participated in was called Code for Impact, and it was all about, how can you use technology to make an impact in people's lives. And I think people just really like the fact that, because a lot of people have dyslexia, and most of the times it goes undiagnosed and unnoticed because, you just say, hey, you're not that good in school, that's okay, you'll find, a different kind of job. But it's a big problem, and we saw that with just a little bit of work, if we can build something like this, we could actually make the lives of a lot of people much better. So I think they saw that, and that's how we got started. Now we are in a lot of different verticals, but we do keep true to what the idea was originally, that let's make technology more accessible to these people.
And how many people have used that particular browser extension then, you think?
I think we had a couple of hundred users in the beginning. But unfortunately, because of how our focus has changed to our products, which are now our main products, we haven't really updated that plugin since then.
Okay. Well, tell me about the other products that you've built then. Sounds interesting.
So our primary product now is Augustia, which is a web accessibility plugin. And how that works is, if you run, let's say, a website, then you're used to adding plugins from here and there, little JavaScript codes. So how that works is you have to add one line of code in your website, and it automatically makes your website super accessible. So it adds a little plugin that people can click on, which would open accessibility options. And then there you can find, so many different things, like a night mode to read at night, a blue light filter, a dyslexia-friendly mode, read aloud for people who are blind, so it would actually read out the whole web page. So it's like, you can think of it like an app store, which has a lot of different modes, and people can just pick and choose. Let's say I want to increase my font size and I want a blind-friendly mode, and you can just choose that preferences, and then it would make that website run the way you want to.
And how long did it take you to build that, and how are things going?
So we officially founded the company in August, which is when we realized that we should start building on something like this, which is more enterprise. August 2016. And we built it in a few months, and we started doing betas, and we got a lot of feedback. And we were in beta for over a year. And just earlier this year, in maybe first quarter of 2018, is when we signed up our first paying client.
And what was that like when you got your first paying client?
It was really interesting because our first client was not, how people usually have their first paying client, which is, a tiny website. We came up with the business plan that we want our plugin to be useful for everyone. So what we did is, the pricing works this way, that if you have less than 10,000 page views a month, which means you're not a big website, then it's for free. So you don't have to pay anything ever. And then for larger websites, we start charging you. So we already, in our beta, we worked with, maybe 10, 20 different companies, and we gave them our plugin for free. And then we had our first sign up, which we thought, okay, so 10,000 is the minimum, so maybe 20, 30,000 page views per month. We can handle it. And we have a good Amazon Web Services infrastructure. But our first sign up actually has more than 2 million page views a month. So that actually taught us about scaling. So we actually gave it, for about a month for free to them, where we really figured out the scale. Because from, practically zero, we came from 10, 20 things happening on our server per second. So we had to scale to that. We had to migrate from a MySQL base to an Influx base. So we did a lot of stuff. We learned a lot throughout the way. And now if a company comes which has, 100 million page views a month, we can still handle that because we went through that process of learning that. So I think that was really cool.
Seems to be going well then. You mentioned dropping out of design college.
So I really wanted to study design because my background is as a designer and an engineer both, and I wasn't, I didn't want to do computer science and BTech or something like that. I went to Ahmedabad, and I was there for about, maybe 3 weeks-ish, maybe a bit more, maybe a bit less. I actually don't remember. And I came back and I started doing this full time for a year. And that year was really cool because we won Startup India Rocks, which is perhaps India's largest startup competition, because they had over 1,000 companies and we were the winners. So that was really cool. That was, I think, December 2016. So that was a really fun year for me. But in 2017, I thought that even though this is what I want to do, I don't want to, maybe I felt like I don't want to regret not going to university at all later. So I thought, maybe let me just apply to a couple of places that I like. So I applied around the world. I applied to 10 universities. I applied to, and of course I was accepted everywhere, and then I had to choose where to go. So I think I applied to California College of the Arts, one in Melbourne, one in Germany, one here in the Netherlands. So I applied at programs I really love. And then I came here. So right now I'm in Enschede, and I study at the University of Twente, which is Europe's most entrepreneurial university. So one of the reasons I chose this place is because I spend my time both working on Oswald and scaling throughout Europe. Most of our customers are actually now in Europe, not in India. And also I'm able to study creative technology, which is an interdisciplinary program really between design and engineering. So, I go to class and I have to study things like math, physics, and computer science, but also user experience design and ergonomics and product design. So it's really what I was looking for in a program. And the fact that, really great startups like Booking.com and Takeaway have come from this campus really has this ecosystem of entrepreneurship, which I'm really happy to be in.
What's life like in the Netherlands then? What's the best bit?
So it's really different because I think So one thing I learned I had a meeting with the ambassador of the Netherlands in India at the embassy back at home, and he told me something which really stuck with me, which is that because of the Netherlands geography, which is super, low-lying flat, that's what Netherlands literally means. It's really affected their culture and their society because of how flat it is and everyone is kind of equal. Geographically, people also feel that way. So whenever I go to a company, I could go to a Fortune 500 company's office and just take the first name of the guy I want to meet. Or, in the entire ecosystem, I could just go to a really senior investor and say, hey, Bill, how are you? Let's have coffee. Whereas back at home, it's really a different system where people really care about things like being called sir and all of that. So I find that really interesting about how open people are and how much they're willing to go out of their way to help you. And that I've really seen, which is why I started Oswald Labs Accelerator as a way of giving back to this community, which has gave me so much. So I felt like if we can come up with a program where startups can get access to all of these great people and resources for free, then I think I should spend some of my time doing that.
How do you balance your entrepreneurial life with your college life, your university life then?
That is perhaps the question I have to answer most often, and still I don't have a good answer for it because, unfortunately, if I look at my calendar right now, I usually have between 2 and 3 things happening at the same time. Never one, except on Sundays. So, hey. So I think I have tried to find a balance because I have a system of dividing my time in blocks, and then each block represents something I want to do in that 30-minute or hour period, and then I try to just do that or that and something else as well. Whatever, it's just super complicated, but I do try to make sure that I do both. I mean, the good part about my university right now is that I don't have a lot of compulsory classes. I could just not go to some lectures but study up at home and give the test, and that's okay as well. But then some lectures are so interesting that I just want to be there. So I would, and of course the Netherlands, that means you have to bike everywhere. You don't take the bus or anything, even though we do have a good public transportation system. People just like to use their bicycles. So my office is about 15 minutes from my university. So about twice a day, I bike back and forth. So it's good exercise as well. So sometimes, I have a class ending at 12:30 p.m. and then I bike and I start working in my office at about 1 o'clock, and then I bike back for a 4 p.m. class. So that's how my day goes, yeah.
Nice. How do you motivate yourself then to do all this?
Well, the days that every day I wake up and I'm extremely motivated because I have something I have to do, some problem I want to solve. And it's not just about, doing a sales pitch for a new client. I keep doing a lot of different things. Like if you look at my Google Keep list of ideas I want to work on, it is so long that I keep scrolling and I still have so many great things I want to do. So I think the day I lose that motivation is the day I will stop, spending my time the way I do. But right now I'm just super excited about everything.
So how much research do you do then when you come up with the idea?
So we did a lot of research, primarily secondary. Especially on the hackathon that first day, because out of the 20 hours, we probably spent maybe 10 hours just reading up on research papers from places like the British Dyslexia Association and the W3C. And we just kept going through these PDFs and trying to understand, why is it that, for example, some people with dyslexia say that a yellow background and black text is better legible than a white and black, even though the color contrast ratios of white and black are higher. So we do a lot of research and talk to a lot of people, especially since I've come here because I'm part of the university. I've really gotten more into the R&D aspects of it, where I can work with great researchers and really talk to real people. And I think that's been our approach. So when we started the company, we were actually called Oswald Foundation, because we wanted to emphasize the fact that we're doing something for the good. But late last year, we renamed to Oswald Labs to really show that R&D is what we do. We care about solving real problems, and we really think of ourselves as as an idea factory or a think tank rather than a traditional enterprise.
Why not just do a traditional enterprise then?
Because the problem is that I mean, legally speaking, we are a traditional enterprise. Of course, we're a registered company, but I think that really reflects our values and our priorities. That we don't want to start a business and maybe focus on how do we price it so that we earn more money, but rather what are the real grass problems we're solving? How do we go on the roads and talk to people and get their feedback? And I think when you think of yourself as more of a think tank, then you give yourself that leverage that even if this is not the best business decision, but it's the best consumer problem solving decision, then we really think that that's the direction we want to look at. Like if you look at our accelerator, for example, I spend maybe 4 or 5 hours per week of my personal time on it. And that is completely loss-making venture because we take no equity, we take no money, and we still spend a lot of our time in helping these startups grow and connecting them to relevant, investors or lawyers or technical consultants who can give some of their time for free to help them.
Well, let's talk about this accelerator then. Probably the first question is, how much money do you give out?
None. So how the accelerator works is that we don't give any cash and we don't take any equity.
Right.
And what we do is we have a remote program, which means we have startups from everywhere applying, and we work primarily online. So we have weekly Skype calls. We really have a community here, especially in NCR and back at home in Delhi. And so what we've done is we've partnered with places like co-working spaces. So if you're in a city which has one of our partners, then you can actually get an office space to work out of there for free. So we have a lot of startups doing that here. We also recently added one back at home in Noida. And so those co-working spaces are happy to give out, because they're our partners, let's say 4 tables every month for free for our startups. And then so this is just an example. We've partnered with a lot of different companies who are willing to give out some of what they do for free to these startups. For example, Amazon Web Services gives $5,000 and 2 years of business support. And we also have companies here. For example, we've partnered with an accelerator here called Novelty, which gives out free time with lawyers because lawyers in Europe are super expensive. But if you have a question like, hey, how do I make this particular part of my app GDPR compliant, then it's good that you sit with a lawyer and answer all of your questions. But that could be really expensive. So we've partnered with them and they're giving out free, let's say 3-4 hours per week of legal time. So we've partnered with all of these great people who are interested in giving back to the community. And our accelerator is primarily remote, where we connect them with all of these free services and people who want to have them.
But how do you decide which companies get in and which don't?
So we have an application process on F-Success where we ask them a bunch of questions and we have Skype calls. And that's it. Just like any typical traditional accelerator, we like to talk to them about what problem they're solving. And we have a kind of comprehensive form where we already have metrics and values that people are giving. But we also like to talk to people personally and have Skype calls with them, at least 2 before we have a final decision. And and that's it. We're really diverse because if you look at, let's say, we have an app called Brandy, which is a chatbot on Messenger for your personal branding. So it helps you, how do you improve your LinkedIn profile or something. And on the other hand, we have an application from a platform for connecting people with cancer. So it's not just, an app for timekeeping, for example, is one of our other called, I think, Timebound. And on the other hand, we have these enterprises which are building, let's say, an augmented reality app for somebody with dyslexia. So we have, and these are all of these 4 are real examples of companies in our program. So I think I love the fact that we are so diverse in terms of, because we really care about these companies reflecting our values. That really distinguishes us from other programs because one of the problems that we had when we were first thinking about raising a round is that typical investors don't care about social entrepreneurship. They care about ROI. And I think we've really prioritized doing real groundwork and solving real problems than, ROI in 12 months, I think that really makes us different.
So what's most important to you then when you look at these applications? Is it the people, is the experience, is the idea, or the problem solving, etc.? What speaks to you most, as it were?
So I think it's a combination of what problem you're solving and what team you have. because if one of those goes wrong, then the whole thing is not going to work. But if you have both of them, or even if you really have one of them really good, then we can probably help you figure out the second half. So I think we have, because we have basic Android apps, but we have really large scale, problems that are being solved, like, business AI, how do you make enterprise more AI accepting? So I think, I think those two factors of what problem you're solving, but also what skill set your team has, or because team is not just about, hey, do you have a designer and an engineer and a product guy? It's really about what motivates you and why is it that you are the right person to solve this problem? Why is it that you're so incredibly passionate about that? So I think the team and the problem statement are two really key metrics that we care about. If you have, because we've accepted companies who've had thousands of users and 0 users, both based on these two metrics.
And then what happens after they've completed the accelerator class or course?
Well, so we don't really have 2-month program rigorous every week. We you can think of it like an online community where all of these startups can learn from each other, talk to each other. And we have our weekly Skype calls. After a point, we stop and we say, okay, we've done all that we could. Because I think the main goal was that for us to become from Oswald Foundation to Oswald Labs and find our place and our value proposition in the world took us over a year. And our goal is to help these startups reach that stage that we reached in, less than a month. And that's the whole process. And after that, we still keep in touch with everyone, of course. And right now it's so formal that people can just message me on Facebook and say, hey, I have this problem. Can you connect with me? You're connected to this guy with LinkedIn. Can you help me with that? And I think that's just how it is. But I guess when we do scale, we have to come up with more concrete communication ways and concrete timelines. But for now, I think we're really happy the way we are in keeping this as a community-based problem-solving think tank where everyone can learn from each other.
Do you think anyone could be an entrepreneur? It seems everyone wants to be an entrepreneur these days.
I think entrepreneurship is really about your priorities. Why do you wake up in the morning and brush your teeth and then decide what I'm going to do today? So I think to a level, perhaps everyone can, but it's really about if you find something that you're passionate about and you want to solve that problem. Because, I like to think of it as like a 2-step problem plus tools approach, which is that you have a problem statement. Let's say, you want to fix education, you want to make classes more open and free for everyone. And then you have your toolkit, which is why are you the best person to solve this problem? So in my case, I as an engineer and a designer, I wanted to solve the same problem. And that was my first startup. It was an ed tech company called Class Rebels, which was building a platform to help students and teachers communicate with each other more efficiently. But then you can also solve the same problem with something like, Teach for Education, which is like Teach for America, for example, which is where students take a year or two after they've graduated from college to go to inner cities and rural places where they don't have great teachers to volunteer as teachers. So I think it's not about how you solve that problem, but it's really about what makes you the right person to solve that problem. So I think if you have that left half of your problem statement and the thing you're trying to solve, and the right half of your toolkit and why you can solve that problem, I think then you're an entrepreneur automatically, because then nobody can stop you from that motivation every morning that, hey, you want to solve this problem. So I think, if you have those two key things, I think anyone can be an entrepreneur.
What would you say, in your opinion, is the best thing about being an entrepreneur? If you can share any stories.
I don't know. For me personally, because of the industry we're in, it's about impact. I've had, for example, I got an email from a New York City-based therapist for children with dyslexia who described how she likes to use visual modifications as well. But more importantly, all of the students that she works with, all of these children, she's been using our plugin and she's had great results. And I think that is something that I'm incredibly motivated by. And those kind of stories are what keep me going. And so I think being an entrepreneur, for me, it's not just about, hey, I can make my own decisions and, hey, I decide how much I get paid. But it's really about, hey, I really get to see how many people are impacted and how many people are happier because of what I've done. I think that's really motivating, and I think that's really strong as a feeling.
How do you deal with failure then? A lot of startups do fail. They've released a product and no one's using it.
We've had so many, and I've had so many personally, because I've just, when I was a kid, one of my mentors, Shivik, who I've been actually working with on a new AI project recently, said something to me, and he said "gir ke seekh," which translates to learn by falling down. And I think that has been just something which I've been so incredibly, I don't know. I mean, I've just made that kind of my mantra, because I feel like the best thing that could happen to you is failure. I think that's even better than success, because then you learn something out of it. And for me personally, all of these, so many startups and so many ideas and so many side projects I've worked on for a decade have really shaped the person I am, the people I'm with, the people who give me ideas and critique, and my family and my girlfriend, and all of those people have shaped me. And I think all of my failures have really made me who I am. I think what I am today, and let's say if that's good or bad is up to your discretion, but I think that has been shaped majoritarily by the mistakes I've made. So I think dealing with failure is for me, I am super happy that, hey, I lost in that hackathon, or nobody likes this new product we've been working on, because then we know why. And when you talk to real people and we realize that, hey, this is not a problem we were solving, or the thing that we thought impacted everyone really impacts a really tiny amount of the problem we wanted to solve, that's a big learning step. And then version 2 and then version 3 and so on can be much better. So yeah, I think I like to think of failures as like a change log of my life. And I think you need that change log to reach the version you want to reach.
So in your opinion, what about product market fit then? How do you know whether to keep going or not?
Well, for us, it's primarily feedback. Because of how R&D focused we are, we don't build anything without talking to people. For me personally, you would talk to a person and you'd say, hey, this is what our idea is, and should we build it? And then they would either say, yeah, that's a great idea, I would use it. Or they would say, no, that's a terrible idea. But the problem is, even when they say that that's a great idea, and then you go back to them and say, hey, now, will you pay me to do it? Then they say, well, you know what? I changed my mind. So I think market fit for us is really about talking to people and getting feedback constantly. So for each version or each evolution of your product, each new feature or change, you go back to your users and you hear from them. So for example, our first paid client from earlier this year, every change that we've done to Augusta, every major change. So for example, when we added our blind-friendly read aloud mode a couple of months ago, and now that we're working on new AI chatbot features, we go back to them, and all of our other clients, of course. But my point is, it's not just about your biggest client, but it's also equally about your first client and all of them as well. So we go back to the drawing board and we go back to them and say, hey, this is what we want to work on. What do you think? And afterwards we say, okay, this is what we've built and we want you to give it a shot. And I think that two-way communication, even though it might not scale unless significant changes are made, really helps us find our right market fit.
And you mentioned a side project.
For the past couple of months, I've been working with the Dutch company called SpeakUp, which is a big VoIP company, a telecommunications operator here. And yeah, we've been working on a new AI chat assistant over emails for businesses. So do you know X.AI? It's a company which is building an email assistant to schedule meetings. So you can just say, hey, set up my meeting, and then the AI would send emails on your behalf and do back and forth and find a time on a calendar, stuff like that. So we've been looking into that industry, and we're working on a new project which uses an AI assistant over email to do all of these great things. So, setting up your meetings, following up with people. I could just say, hey, follow up with me next week and ask him if the podcast has gone online. And then the AI would email you automatically and follow up with you. Or I could just say, hey, send him my bank details so he can pay me. And then she would do that. So it's like, how do you save time not writing a lot of emails in a business context? So I've been working with a company on that for the past few months, but I do a lot of stuff. So outside of Oswald Labs as well, I am a consultant to maybe 10 different companies across Eurasia. And I also recently joined as a board of advisor at a Dutch nonprofit trying to solve adult education as a problem. How do you help people and skilled people get better jobs. So yeah, I mean, I'm all across the board. I do a lot of stuff.
Yeah, you mentioned your consultancy. What questions do they ask then? What's the main question?
So primarily it's a combination of startup stuff and tech stuff, but I also do some design stuff. So yeah, I mean, anything, because I think my value proposition is that I've failed so many times and I have the skill set of engineering, design, and entrepreneurship. So I typically help companies primarily in technology. So, what stack should we choose? Why should we do this? How do we scale this particular technology? And I think most of my work was with e-commerce related companies until I think last year, where I was consulting companies which have anything from, zero to tens of thousands of dollars per day in revenue. And yeah, I think, everything from how do we automate our operations, because right now we have, 4 guys who would print out stickers and then put them on the product and then send them to FedEx and all of that. And how do we automate that, to how do we help our customers customize t-shirts, for example. So like a lot of different verticals, but I guess where I come in is you have a problem statement, and I guess I can loan you some of my tools and help you how to solve them.
And you've won a lot of awards as well. Talk about that.
So I personally have been super excited because 2018 has been nice so far. In January, I was listed by the Dutch Financial Times in their annual list of 50 most innovative entrepreneurs under 35 in the Netherlands. That was really cool because in January, I had only been in the Netherlands for 4 months maybe. And so that was really nice. And then I think in March afterwards, I was in Forbes 30 under 30 Asia in the social entrepreneurship section.
That's the big one, right? Forbes 30 under 30.
That is really big, yeah. That was really exciting. We were also one of the youngest on the list. And then I was also in a Next Web list. So a lot of stuff, but I think, it's been a good year. I think it's not just about, hey, you were listed in that or you won that award. It's really about, I think it opens up a lot of doors for you, which is maybe perhaps slightly unfair, but you get that value advantage because now, I remember the day that the list came out and the week after that, my LinkedIn profile visits grew by over 1,000%. LinkedIn actually shows you a graph, and still nothing has peaked that 1,000% jump in 1 week. And I think that opens a lot of opportunities and doors for you. So I think it's been super great, and let's see where we go from here. I think it's been exciting.
I bet you're glad you dropped out of that design course now, right?
Yeah, of course. That design college was when I dropped out back then, yeah.
What did your friends and family think of that when you told them you were dropping out?
Yeah, I mean, back then it was, so luckily I think most of my life has just been luck. But I think when you connect the dots looking backwards, you see that, hey, I was lucky at every step, and that's where I reach here. But today, I don't know how my next week is going to go because of that meeting and that meeting. So, but I guess 2 weeks later, I would again look back and say I was lucky throughout the way. So I think I was incredibly lucky because my parents were super supportive even before, like in high school, I remember I would basically never study, and I would work on these side projects and startups and consultancy. And I remember, until my 11th grade exams, I was essentially failing math, physics, and chemistry.
Wow.
3 out of my 5 subjects. And my school was also pretty supportive. They were like, we know you're going to do it, so that's okay. And I guess I wasn't that bad finally in 12th grade. It was pretty decent. And when I went to school, they were excited. Hey, yeah, okay, you want to go to design school? Do it. And then when I said, okay, yeah, I don't want to do design school anymore, then I want to move back. And they said, okay, fine. So yeah, I think my parents were incredibly supportive, and they've helped me throughout the way. And then I said, hey, now I want to go to the Netherlands. And they said, okay, fine. So I guess I'm kind of exhausting the okay fines I can get until a point. But yeah, I think I've had an incredibly supportive ecosystem. Yeah.
What is it you want to do when you graduate then? You must have a lot of offers and ideas.
I do have a lot of offers and ideas. It's really funny because I remember I was at a hackathon, and just because I do keep doing hackathons every few months, because for me it's really, I don't know, like people do cleansing diets, I do hackathons. Like for me it's like 24 hours, no disturbances, all of the company work, all of the consultancy work, that's all muted. And I just have 5 cans of Red Bull, and I have a problem statement which I have to solve, and I love that feeling. And, I've had people just say, hey, this is really cool. We would love for you to work for us. And, during the hackathon only, like, hey, yeah, let's get started. And I'm like, yeah, so I think you're right. I honestly don't know what I have to do after graduating. I still have 2 years. I honestly don't even know whether I'm going to stay in the Netherlands or which part of the Netherlands. Do I want to relocate to Amsterdam or stay here and all of that? But I think Oswald Labs is going to be a really big part of it. And because our goal since I've moved here has been on scaling and tapping into the greater European area, because now what we do is all of our support and development happens back at home, where we have a great team there led by my CTO and COO. And we have a local team here in the Netherlands, which is primarily on sales and getting clients because, people in Europe pay more for the same things. And that's how we've been looking at it. And I think for the next 2 years, my goal is just going to be scaling, primarily in Europe. And I guess the next 2 years is really going to shape what I do after I graduate. And honestly, I have no answer for that yet.
And what about in 20 years' time? What would this company look like in 20 years' time then?
That is a really bold kind of long-term question because so I like to think of myself as a person who wants to spend my life solving grassroots problems. And Oswald Labs is a really big part of it. And I've spent 2 years on it already of my time. But I don't know if that's what I'm going to be doing 20 years later. To be honest, I'm incredibly passionate about other verticals such as education. And my lifelong dream has been in really solving the education problem in India from a legislative point of view. So honestly, I don't even know whether I'll be an entrepreneur or a politician in 20 years. But I think that's a really long-term goal that I have to think about. But yeah, I think 20 years later, I should, at least if everything goes to plan, I would want to look at other verticals that I'm passionate about, like education and empowerment, and kind of try to solve grassroots problems over there as well. But yeah, I think Oswald Labs for the next couple of years is my focus. And let's see how it goes.
You mentioned politics. Let's say you were Prime Minister of India. What was the first thing you'd do?
Wow, that is a question I've never heard before. To be honest, I would be super happy with being the Education Minister of India. But I think, honestly, I don't know. I don't want to really showcase my political views on a podcast, but I think the current Prime Minister of India is doing a pretty good job solving the problems I want to solve in India. Everything from... and I think it's not just about the current Prime Minister. For example, after I graduated from high school and before I went to design school, I actually worked at the government of Delhi under the Department of Education under Manish Sisodia, who is still the Deputy Chief Minister of Delhi. And we looked at how do we use technology to make education better in the government schools of Delhi, and we built an app for clear communication between the government and, let's say, a principal. And if you have a problem, how do we fix it? And the Aam Aadmi Party government, who is in power in Delhi right now, they did perhaps one of the only things that they did really well was a really good job at education in Delhi. So I think there's a lot of great stuff already happening, and if I have the opportunity of just taking it forward, I think that would already be incredible. So I think if I were in a position of power, I would really spend a lot of time and energy into how do you make education really educating for India. Because the only thing that's going incredibly well for us is our human resource. We have so many people, and I think that really and that's why even though our GDP per capita is not good, our GDP is always going to be good because we have a lot of people. And I think education is the way we can use that to, as good as we can to the limit of our potential. And I think there's a lot of great stuff that needs to still happen. I mean, you can say, hey, Finland doesn't give students homework and they're better off. But I think it's not as easy because their problems are very different from our problems. When I'm in the Netherlands and I see students who are in 3rd grade and 4th grade and they already know more about sex than a girl in India who is having her first period, I think that really shows that the priorities are, sex education is really important, which is not something we still have in India. So I think there's a lot of work to be done. And I also think that there's a lot of great work already being done. And I think I would be really happy in spending my life trying to do that as well. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Last few questions then. Do you have any favorite startups or any favorite startup founders, people you look up to?
Wow, that is a super long answer. No, so I could give a really long list, but I think there's just a lot of great stuff happening. I mean, if you look at India, for example, I have these conversations with people here often that in the Netherlands, people don't use mobile payments still. I don't think we don't even have Apple Pay, maybe we just got it, because people use credit cards and nobody uses cash. And it's really funny because I'm on the German border, and whenever I go on that side, which is, every month or every other month, I go to Germany for something, and people carry cash. I've literally been in shops where people say, hey, we don't take a card, we would only take cash. And that is very different because in the Netherlands, even on the public transportation system, when you're buying a bus ticket, you just use your contactless credit card. And I think that's really cool. Dutch people only use, plastic. But in India, we've basically had no cards ever. Nobody in India has a credit card. Most people use cash. And now we've kind of leapfrogged over this entire plastic ecosystem and jumped from a cash society to a mobile payment society. So we've actually overtook Europe in that they're going to take at least 5 years now to move from plastic to phone, but we've already reached that. And I find that super incredible that because of the R&D and the technological progress, we can really leapfrog and get even ahead. So I think companies like Paytm and entrepreneurs like Vijay Shekhar Sharma who are really taking this forward, people like Kunal Shah, I think that's really cool that we can really build on top of the stuff that's already been done by other great people, and that would move us further ahead of everyone else. I think those kind of examples really make me happy.
Have you got any books or blogs you want to recommend to our listeners?
I listen to podcasts and read books a lot, especially since I've moved here, since I bike very often. Most of my transportation is still done with the bicycle. I just put my earphones on and I listen to an audiobook or a podcast. So, I've been reading new books. I really like a book called The Checklist Manifesto, which is what I finished very recently, which is about the power of checklists. I think a lot of good books are there, and I actually have a GitHub repository called Books to Read.
Okay.
So if listeners are actually interested in what books I recommend, there's a really long list. I really like Ed Catmull's book, Creativity, Inc. Ed Catmull is the founder of Pixar, and he writes about his entire story from Pixar to Disney and creativity. And I think that's really inspiring. And of course, we have the classics like Sam Walton or 0 to 1. And I think if you're an entrepreneur today, you are so lucky because you have. I think the good part about reading, books related to entrepreneurship and nonfiction in general is that in 7-8 hours of reading, you learn from decades of experience, and you don't have to make the same mistakes. And I think that's super powerful. And I think as long as people keep listening to great podcasts like yours and read great books like Sprint or Sheryl Sandberg, I think that's really cool.
Actually, you mentioned hackathons. Any tips? Any do's or don'ts? Any advice?
So there are two forms to answer this question. One is if you want to win, and one is if you want to solve the problem. And they're completely different. They're like if you draw a Venn diagram, they're going to be two circles away from each other. And I've been in both of those, and I kind of try to find a middle ground. So if you want to win, you should not care about your tech or your stack or should you do Postgres or MongoDB. You should just build a good prototype which has a very pretty design which would impress the judges who are traditionally not very technical, and you use all the APIs of the sponsor, stuff like that. But when you're solving a problem, it gets much, much harder to answer that question, because solving a real problem in 24 hours, if that was really easy, then companies would not spend decades in R&D. So I think then you really have to look at your problem statement and think about, with your skill set and your team's skill set, how can you best tackle this problem with the support of the people who are there. So, for example, we were at a hackathon recently, and we had a problem of fixing home security and smart locks, stuff like that, and all of the partners there were like people like the Dutch police system, and they had a list of, for example, most wanted people or missing people. So we built an AI chatbot which can work as a home doorbell system compared to like Nest. But the major breakthrough the idea was that you spend 200-300 euros on a smart system, but if you go to whatever, a Media Markt or just an electronic store, the cheapest smartphones now cost maybe 30, 40, 50 euros. So the idea was if you could run that entire system on a cheap old smartphone, mount that as a doorbell. So we built an app called Wendy, which would use AI's deep learning based face detection models. And as people ring the doorbell, she would remember that, hey, this is your friend, and they would let her in automatically, or send you a notification that, hey, a guy you don't know has come. Do you want to open it or not? But what's really cool is that because we had the support of the Dutch police system, we were able to integrate all of their data. So now when somebody rings the doorbell or as people walk by, we could actually map them to missing or wanted personnel and automatically tell the police. So I think, as long as you stick to the problem you're solving and come up with interesting, innovative ways, I think hackathons are really a powerful way of, because it's like brainstorming, but, much elongated and much more caffeinated. And I think that's a good way of solving a lot of problems.
Okay, last question then. For people who want more information on Oswald Labs and what you do, how do they connect?
Well, you could just Google Oswald Labs and you would find everything. I think you can visit our website, oswaldlabs.com. And if you're able to spell my surname correctly, which I doubt you would be able to, my name is Anand Chowdhary. You can again Google me or go to my personal website, anandchowdhary.com. And of course, I'm super open in terms of answering emails. I actually came up with a brand new system this year. So if you're interested in being part of our accelerator or just learning more, you could drop me a line at ceo@oswaldlabs.com.
Anand, it's been absolutely fantastic speaking to you.
You do, Neil.
Keep drinking the Red Bull and hope it all works out for you.
Okay, Neil. Thank you so much.
Buddy. Thank you. Cheers, man. Thanks to Anand for coming on the show today. Thank you for listening and supporting the podcast. I shall be back next week. If you're building something exciting, please send me an email, hello@neilpatel.co. Or you can tweet at Indian Startup SH or go to facebook.com/Indian Startup Show. Look to connect. Thank you and goodbye.